The best periods of my life always came after a phase of getting absolutely fed up with the lack of progress that I was making. And I've begun to understand the difference between a relief and a cure. Relief feels good, and it comes in the form of cheap pleasures, mindless entertainment, and prescriptions. And by prescriptions, I mean things like confident how-to advice and other things like that, like go to school, get a job, retire at 65. Pretty much step-by-step game plans that are subjective and work for the individual and must be created by the individual and perceived as guidelines and not law. Humans fear change. And so we cling to the illusion of security that is presented by the external world. The advice, the porn beyond sex, the promises of a better life, the persuasive marketing angles, the things that may provide a sense of security but are not of your own understanding. A cure is painful, and it comes in the form of getting sick of being sick, to the point where you come full circle. And not the normal full circle that everyone thinks of, but by full circle, I mean a complete and radical flip in perception. So I want you to imagine a line, and this line has a black to white gradient, black on one side, white on the other, with shades of gray in the middle. And now if we take that line and we connect the ends where black and white meet, that is what I mean by full circle. And we can see this pattern of reality in our everyday life. A person so stupid that they become insightful, an outfit so unstylish it becomes stylish, a joke so unfunny that it becomes funny, a non-believer so trapped that they become a believer, or a person so fed up with who they are, they become an entirely new person. And so on that note, we have to understand who we are, why we do the things that we do, and the character that we are playing in this world, and the pivotal moment in which we can change that character. Identity restricts perspective. Your identity provides a boundary so that your thoughts don't fall into unknown territory and threaten your entire existence. Perspective influences perception, because any given situation has a certain amount of information that can be perceived by you, right? The conscious mind can process around 50 bits of information per second. And so when you go into a situation and you are perceiving something from the goals, ideas, and beliefs that you hold in your mind, you're cherry picking the information that you perceive, and you don't play a conscious role in this 99% of the time. So the identity or character that you have created, or that has been projected on you over time, your conditioning, your programming, your automatic thought processes and perceptions limit the information that you process within a situation, because your perspective only allows you to see what you want to see. And from that information, you will perceive the situation differently from everyone else. So to illustrate this, I want you to think of a bird. And so if you think of a bird, an image pops into your mind. What image is that, right? Some people will see a cardinal, some people will see a blue jay, some will see an eagle, some will see a vulture, some will see maybe even a duck. The image that pops into your head will be completely different from every single other human being on this planet, especially from culture to culture. And the same is true for something like the concept of God, which is extremely touchy, but you can pick apart and understand and zoom out and not allow your mind to judge anything that I'm saying here from your prior conditioning or indoctrination to certain ideologies. And you can notice that everyone is saying the exact same thing. And simply because the concept or the word isn't the same as what you've believed it to be the entire time, you are holding an image in your mind of what that thing is. Some people believe it's a man in the sky. Some people believe it's the underlying fabric of reality that can't be seen. And it's the same thing with a bird, where everyone holds a different image. But if you strip away the concepts, if you let the lines blur a bit, you can see the essence of what a bird is. And then with that, everyone can be on the same page of what it is. That is why opening your mind or expanding your perspective, or even practicing empathy for other people, or transferring your consciousness into other people to see from their perspective, is so valuable, because then you can pull truths from that perspective, integrate it into your own, which is what I like to do, but I'm nowhere near perfect at this, right? But this even reflects across business, where some people get so tied to, oh, the best business model, or this is the best way to make money, this is the best skill to learn. And it's like, you just have to view what successful people are doing from each perspective and note the patterns in the middle. And from there, you can make much better decisions in what you learn, what you do, and the way that your business operates. And so, speaking of something as touchy as God, we can tie in the example of Christ consciousness, which is also a concept, but it points at how Jesus Christ had a higher level of consciousness, if not an extremely high level of consciousness to that of the universe or God. Because the identity, right? We're tying in identity here. His identity was not attached to anything, right? This is what the spiritual masters are getting at, where he was not attached to anything. So his perspective was not limited. He was able to expand his perspective to that of everything and see situations for what they are. And I'm not here to lecture you on religion, ideology, or dogma, because that is the exact opposite of what I'm pointing at here. I'm pointing at first order being, not second order knowing, right? Being is the landscape of everything. Knowing emerges from that. And with that, you cannot fold one under the other. You can't fold knowing under being. It is impossible to know because it can't be put into words, because it came from words, or words came from it. And so, since we're talking about something so touchy, I just want to make it very clear, or at least challenge you to look inward. If you noticed or became aware of if you felt threatened when I said something relating to anything, I understand the mind of the atheist. I understand the mind. I was raised a Mormon. I understand the mind of many different perspectives because I've sought to understand them. I sought to challenge my own beliefs. I sought to prove myself wrong, even when I thought I was the most right person in the world. And the meaningful dopamine that you reap from this pattern recognition across different perspectives is a sign that you're moving in the right direction. It just feels good to expand your mind in a non-pleasurable way. Perception influences how you move within the world. People that are heavily tied to a religious, nutrition, business, or political ideology will almost always act in alignment with the goals that were assigned to them by that intellectual construct. People that seek truth or seek to open their mind to awareness, consciousness, and understanding are able to make much more conducive decisions towards their ideal future. Because action is directed toward a goal, always, even the minor things, literally everything, always action. If I'm moving my hand like this, that is still the goal of me trying to get something across to you. And your identity has goals baked into it because your identity is required to navigate the world and move within the world. It determines what you actually do. And so a political ideologue will adopt the beliefs of their parents without question and will act towards the goals that were assigned to them by that political party. You see this all the time, like during election season, where they become new people, right? They kind of join in on literally anything that the political party that they subscribe to is saying, even if they wouldn't usually believe that, or you present it to them from a non-political perspective and they agree with you. But when it becomes a political perspective, they get all up in arms and threatened, and their ego and identity is at stake. They feel like they're going to die because that's what death is. It's conceptual. And the same thing goes for like religion, where I remember writing a newsletter, right, about God. And so I tried to get across a perspective, and what's interesting is that I talk about it in every single video, every single newsletter, and simply because it is not framed under that religious lens, people start sending me emails about, oh, you didn't provide proof, you didn't do this. Like, it's just the basic regurgitated things that they see online, and then start spitting off because they're unconscious, they're mindless, they're robots. And so to paint a better, more tangible, less offensive, for some reason, perspective, a bodybuilder, by passion and self-study, will generate their own goals that allow their nutrition, training, and lifestyle to fall in alignment with those goals that they generated. Or else, if their actions aren't in alignment with that goal, because their goal composes their identity, anything they do outside of that goal will lead to suffering, which is not bad, but it is a useful compass towards better. So character creates action, and action reinforces character. So if you want to change who you are, you have to challenge your beliefs, adopt new goals, self-generated, not assigned to you, and self-reflect with time. And by time, I don't mean a day or a week or a month. I mean a lifetime. This is life. And by doing so, you create a life of less involuntary pain. So if we want a different perspective of God or whatever I was talking about earlier, let's use the term life or story, because story is symbolic of universal patterns. And universe, one song, universe, that's what we're in, just this harmony in the present moment of happening. And you can note these patterns in architecture, music, all of creation, scripture, systems, environment, economics, and your life. This is how we make sense of the world, because the mind interprets the world through concepts, stories, metaphors, and symbols. And to understand one thing, we must have an understanding of everything that is connected to it in the relative world to make sense of the distinguished nature of reality. Because a cup wouldn't make sense without a hand. Gravity wouldn't make sense without force or mass. Your life wouldn't make sense without the current state of society and culture. Everything you know is just a layer of stories containing billions of bits of on-off information pieced together for your current level of understanding. Stories give meaning to life, and your identity is the story that you tell yourself. And you will live out that story on autopilot if not made conscious. What word, sentence, paragraph, section, and chapter is unfolding before you in the book that is your life? And so now we have to bring in the topic of polarity to deepen our understanding of just meaning in general. In short, one thing cannot exist without the other. Happiness cannot exist without a sad reference point, nor a cup without a hand, or life without suffering. And on that last point, the climax of a story is the most interesting, or the most memorable, or the most meaningful. When the battle is at its peak, when you aren't sure what the future holds, when the symbolic villain is just about to win, but the hero triumphs. If there were no low points in your life, it would lose all meaning. It would become flat, dull, linear, lifeless, mechanical, robotic, mindless, mediocre. Life is a dance between order and chaos, yin and yang, push and pull, masculine and feminine. And this reflects across all planes of existence, from personal to social to cultural to cosmic to universal, with a capital U. You cannot achieve new heights, perspectives, or levels of consciousness if you never accept the battle, lose your ground, and propel in a new direction. So now we have this big picture understanding of what's going on, why we act, and what kind of suffering that could lead to. And in general, you can see this across the state of the world, that people are just not happy. And so when you reach this climax of the inner mental battle, which is a low point in your life that is supposed to be there, it is a natural part of life, we can leverage that point in time by understanding emotional transmutation. Transmutation is the action of changing, or the state of being changed into another form. So I have a tattoo on my right arm. It's an Ouroboros, or a symbol for alchemy. It's an image of a snake eating its own tail in the shape of an infinity sign. And it's a reminder to me that creation demands destruction and one cannot exist without the other, or that progress demands sacrifice. I like to think of it as a hot air balloon floating up in the air, and it has a bunch of bags hanging down from it on strings, and you can either go down because you have too many attachments, or you can go up by letting go of those attachments, right? But that demands sacrifice, that demands change. And so this points to the law of equivalent exchange, which states that for anything you receive, something must be given of equal or greater value. So many of you have heard of alchemy and transmutation and other things, and some people may perceive it from a literal sense of like the old times where they're turning dirt into gold and some kind of magic. But it's the same thing with the concept of God, where these people are interpreting it literally when all understanding is metaphorical. It's all symbolic, right? Turning dirt into gold clearly isn't a real thing, but metaphorically, you can turn dirt, or a low point in your life, into gold, something better, right? Understand these things metaphorically. Stop being so narrow-minded and stressed and trying to just prove how everything is literal and wrong because it just doesn't happen in reality. That's obvious. And so an example of this is using something like anger or being mad and channeling that towards something good or a goal. And the way I like to think of it is when you're in this low point, it is so much easier to become directly conscious of that which you don't want in life, your anti-vision, the things that you just do not want. That's more readily accessible than, I want this life of a billionaire, even though I haven't experienced it. You're directly experiencing everything about that negative low point in your life, and that alone gives you direction, right? It gives you direction in the opposite way, and you're tapped into this very potent negative emotional state that you can take and use and leverage towards your goals that you set from that anti-vision in the opposite direction. And so this can become dangerous very fast. And I want to make it clear that we want to use our emotions. We do not want to be used by them. We do not want to be unconscious slaves to our state of mind. We want to catch, feel, and direct our negative emotions like a mental Tai Chi master. We want to use, not be used. To create a better life for yourself, emotional energy is the fuel and intentional effort is the vessel. And intention means goal-directed action. What are you stretching towards that is greater than you? And so now it's like, okay, what do I channel it into? A goal. Okay, cool. What goal, right? So we need to channel it into building. That's how you achieve a goal, is by building something. And the philosophy of building is like that of a house, right? You don't just start building a house. Well, you can do this, and this is a great way to actually learn, right? You just go into it, you start building a house, and then it sucks. The first time it's like, okay, let's build another house. And then it gets better. And that's how you actually learn how to build a house that you can pass down to others. And it gets better and better over time until it's strategic. And then you don't have to go through the trial and error yourself. That's what evolution is by solving certain problems so that they become easier to solve. And so if you want to build a house now in whatever metaphorical domain you want to go into, like building a business or getting into a relationship, there is plenty of good advice that you can study and start to practice by building something of your own. And so this is the thing about becoming conscious of the low point that you are in, right? Because if you hit, let's say, a financial low point, like that's the problem in your life, because everyone's not in the same low point. It feels the same, but it's all a different situation. So you have to become aware of that situation. It's like, oh, I'm broke. I never want to be broke again in my life. I absolutely hate this. And I know that there is better. And so you set a goal. Maybe it's time to get a better job or acquire skills so that you can get a higher paying job, or start to build a business and test with those things. And all of this is going to get time. Maybe you go back to college, but throughout this entire time, you still have to remain conscious because you're going to hit new low points and you have to be aware of what's going on there so that you register it actually as a problem. It doesn't just go under the rug, and then you can correct your actions over time so that you aren't stuck, let's say, going to college and getting fed into the societal machine. But at the same time, you're also not starting a business model for the sake of freedom and then building yourself into a new 9-to-5, right? You can pivot along the way throughout all of this. Because most successful people that I know started their journey out of raw hatred for the situation they were in, whether it be they hated their commute to work, or they hated wearing a monkey suit 5 days a week, or they hated that they let a relationship carry on, or that they weren't good enough for the one that they wanted to keep, right? This is why like 80% of young people get in the gym, because it's like, I wasn't good enough in this relationship. Why did it break off? I'm going to go get jacked. And I've talked about this before, but I know young dudes will resonate with that. Very superficial problem, but it's just a phase of life that you go through. And so when these people felt into that low point in their life and let go of their attachment to it and realized that there is a way out and that they were able to find a light that they can work towards, that's it. A new potential revealed itself, and action started to become frictionless just because they had so pent up emotion that they could go towards it. Another thing here is that most people think that hate or negative emotions should just be repressed or forgotten, or that they shouldn't exist. But what they don't realize is polarity. Hate is the opposing end of love, and you wouldn't understand love without hate. But at the same time, hate is the obstruction of love. And by removing it or letting go of it, love starts to reveal itself. And this is the same for multiple different emotions and just things in life. And so now we're getting into my philosophy here. This is not a static philosophy. This is not something that you have to do. This is just what I know, my personal experience, and maybe you'll benefit from it. I believe that holistic entrepreneurship is the meta vessel for any man or woman balancing the chaos in their life with the masculine pursuit of self-generated, goal-oriented building. And so if that makes little sense, because that's me trying to encapsulate a book's worth of information in one sentence, let me explain the entrepreneurial landscape to you right now. First, everyone is an entrepreneur. Centuries ago, individuals fulfilled a purpose within their tribe or community. They acquired skills or interests that fit the quote-unquote marketplace that was their community. Number two is that social media is not just an app. It's a new society. People still don't realize how revolutionary social media was. It's where we learn, our school. It's where we hire for careers. It's where we teach for business. It's where we meet socially. We live in the virtual world right here and now. It's integrated into our lives. And like things like virtual reality, people are like, oh, we're going to be in this whole virtual thing. We're already in it. And neglecting social media for what it is and becoming a mindless consumer of it is like the scene in the Wall-E movie where people are just in their armchairs, brainless, like just watching, like being fed all of this cheap pleasure. And so once you break out of that and you're like, oh, like I can actually help and leverage this to contribute to a better life and help break people out of that. In short, by neglecting social media, you are neglecting the evolutionary path to your fullest potential, because social media actually becoming integrated into our lives is a sign, and it is obvious that it is a stepping stone towards the next phase of human evolution and higher potential for us. Number 3 is that we have problem solved our way into doing what you love. We talked about this, but evolution is the process of solving problems from small to large so that those problems become less stressful, they don't require as much manpower, and we can leverage our time to do the things that we enjoy over time. And we don't notice this until we reflect on a decade-long time scale to see what's actually happened. An innate human drive is to pursue your curiosity and embrace being. And you can't do that without money to a point, but a hard point in this society. Therefore, it becomes one's life's work to leverage modern technology to make an income doing what they enjoy. And you do this by pairing your personal interests, the things that you enjoy studying, your curiosities, the other things that are just innately valuable to your life. You pair those with social media and the umbrella skills under that are also just psychology based in general, which is writing, speaking, marketing, and sales. And you channel your personal interests through those online and are able to eventually create an income for yourself. I talk about that in the $1 million skill stack video. So number 4 is that you are the most profitable niche. What is the meaning of life? That's an incredibly loaded question, but I believe the answer that makes the most sense is to raise the collective consciousness, to help others solve their problems or help them heal, or whatever lens you want to frame that under, so that we can transcend the superficial and live in accordance with what is. And if you hear me say live in accordance with what is, or live in accordance with nature or reality or God, and you've read the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, you're kind of seeing what I'm getting at here, where this has been talked about for time and time and time and time forever. It's an idea that's lived on because it's important. The problems in your life and everyone else's life are mental, physical, spiritual, and financial. Those are the problems that we must individually solve for collective growth. The individual has to take it on themselves to actually act on the information that is given to them. And it is your job to pass down the information from your personal experience so that everyone can do that better and perceive it from the lens that they learn the best from. We as humanity are only as strong as our weakest link, and that weakest link is mediocre, mindless, and destructive. Hence, why you must learn marketing and persuasion for the sake of awareness. You don't push your worldview. You simply illustrate it and let it do its thing. Marketing, persuasion, and the other things that do cause some like alarms to go off in some people's heads, usually the unethical people that say it's unethical, it's a reflection of who they are because they would abuse marketing and persuasion. But you have to understand what marketing and persuasion is. It's applied psychology to value exchange or business. And what it helps you do is articulate your ideas in the way that makes the most sense to other people. So it catches their attention, right? If it doesn't make sense, if it's not a good idea and someone doesn't read over it, then it's a useless idea, right? You have to learn to articulate your ideas in a way that illustrates them holistically and allows people to be like, oh, okay, this is actually a real problem in my life. I need to change it now. And then they do that from an individual level. And the more people that do that, then it combines into collective evolution. In other words, feed the hungry, which is from scripture. And those that are full will eventually grow hungry. You see what I'm saying here? I understand the literal interpretation mind, where like feed the hungry, when they were saying that in whatever doctrine you're reading, it's not like a literal feed the hungry. Sure, that's still symbolic and metaphorical for teaching people that want to be taught and not trying to force it on someone else. And so when you solve your own problems in your life through self-education, skill acquisition, and building a business, then it implies that you have a solution that you can pass down. And so the solutions are both how you gain a readership on social media to build leverage and also create a product from that solution that you can sell on the marketplace. Like when I fixed my productivity problems through self-education and practice, I created a planner that I could sell. It's that simple. And if you don't know where to start all of this with writing and all of that stuff and building leverage, check out my course, 2 Hour Writer. I feel like it's one of the most holistic courses out there that provides you with a non-dogmatic way of going about the future of work and brand growth. So the last one, number 5, is that a quote unquote creator is not a job, but a new way of life. Regardless of your beliefs in a higher power, underlying metaphysical fabric, or any interpretation of a creator with a capital C, it's hard to deny that the act of creation is pure ecstasy, and that's a sign to do it more often. When you learn, dissect, reconnect, and teach, you flex the creative ability of your mind. And in the wise words of Arnold, to me, the pump kind of feels like having sex with a beautiful woman and coming. You know, it just feels fantastic. I'm coming all the time. Creativity is mental bodybuilding. Creation is spiritual sex. And as with everything, we can bring back the image of the bird later. We're going into touchy territory here again, but we bring back the image of the bird and how everyone perceives that differently based on their prior experience. And orgasm is the same thing, where that can happen on multiple planes of existence, and the spiritual plane is one of them, right? The essence, or what an orgasm is, as an experience, can be experienced on the spiritual plane through writing, creation, and passing along your ideas in a way that impacts others. And if everyone leans into their nature as a creator, then saturation ceases to exist. Your story or identity that you display in the creator society is nowhere near the same as anyone else's, even if you are pursuing the same high-level goals like making more money. You can process 128 billion bits of conscious information within your lifetime. You process that through attention, the information that you perceive and are open-minded enough to perceive. That is your potential. And at any given moment, you are either wasting that potential through distraction and a lack of conscious perception, or you're using it to craft a conscious character by which you can navigate reality and contribute to humanity. Feel into the situation that you are in, transmute that energy toward a goal, acquire the skills necessary to reach that goal, pursue your curiosity to avoid the mechanical nature of prescriptions, exchange your knowledge, projects, and solutions in exchange for attention and income. Use your self-reflective consciousness to identify gaps in your ability and fix them. You have the resources right in front of you. It will take time, years. You may not start now, and that's fine, because awareness takes time to blossom. At least you're aware of it. You're further ahead than 99% of the population. Because that's the other thing, is that this video may not have made any sense to your current level of awareness. But I've planted multiple ideas into your mind that act as seeds that will grow when you start to pattern recognize or make connections in your everyday life to what I said. Come back to this in a year and you will see what I'm saying if you stay on the path. Because that's the other thing, is that these videos are not hyper practical. They're not prescriptions. They're not giving you that quick dopamine fix and leading to you not making any progress in this world. This is going to sit in your head and slowly influence your actions towards something better, and that will only compound. And once you are able to create your own prescription, even better. That's when you see results. So push forward in reality based on your experience level. Seek big picture understanding and don't get trapped in the technical details. And lastly, enjoy the rest of your week. Like, subscribe, links in the description for 2 Hour Writer, how to build a readership with creative writing online that you can eventually make an income from, and Digital Economics, which is a larger masterclass on turning yourself into a modern business and joining in on the creator society, as I like to coin it. So with that, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.